Stop. Whatever you are carrying in your chest right now, stop long enough to hear this, because something has already shifted inside you, and you do not have to explain it yet. You have been smiling in rooms where your spirit was tired. You have been answering messages with a steady voice while your heart was asking why the same struggle keeps returning. You have been doing what is right, doing what is necessary, doing what others call strong, and still there is a place in you that feels unseen, almost as if heaven notices your endurance more clearly than people do. What I'm speaking is not for everyone. It is for you, the one who has felt that quiet pressure in the middle of ordinary days, the one who has sat in the car before walking inside, the one who has looked at the ceiling at night and said to yourself, "Something about my life is not finished yet. Stay with me, because by the end you will recognize why the signs started, what they are actually saying, what pattern has been moving underneath them, and why this message reached you with such precision tonight. By the time we close, you are going to recognize the signs that have been circling your life and what they actually mean. You are going to understand the pattern that has been pressing against your peace without your permission. You are going to see why the deepest root is older than the pain you can name. And before this ends, there is a declaration I am going to speak over you that I believe is the reason you're hearing this now. This is not random. This is by appointment. You are hearing this tonight because there is a part of you that has become ready to recognize what you could not carry before. And the timing of that readiness is gentler than your fear, more exact than your questions, and far more faithful than your own understanding. Something has been happening to you, and you have been trying to name it with ordinary words. You wake up, and the room feels charged before the day even begins. You sit down to work, and your mind wanders toward the same question again and again. You laugh at the right moments, you perform the right calm, but beneath it all, there is a sense that your inner world is moving faster than your outer circumstances, as if one part of you has already crossed a threshold the rest of your life has not yet caught up to. One sign. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. Is the way your mornings have begun to repeat themselves. You wake at the same hour, not once by accident, but again and again, with the same heaviness, the same alertness, the same strange feeling that something unseen has already touched the door of your awareness. You lie there and say to yourself, "Why am I awake again?" You tell yourself to go back to sleep. You tell yourself it means nothing. But your body does not treat it like nothing. Your body is listening before your mind agrees. Another sign is the wave that comes without a visible reason. You are fine in one moment, and then you are suddenly grieving something you cannot fully identify. A memory passes through you in the grocery aisle in the shower while you are folding clothes, and your chest tightens as if an old ache has remembered your name. You tell yourself, "I should be over this by now." You tell yourself, "I was fine earlier." Yet the feeling returns not as punishment, but as a signal that something buried is being stirred toward the surface where it can no longer control you in silence. Another sign is how conversations that once carried weight now sound thin to you. The words are the same, the people are the same, the habits are the same, but something in you has changed enough that old explanations no longer satisfy you. You sit across from people and answer politely while inside you are hearing another sentence altogether. This does not reach me anymore. You do not say it out loud because you know what it would cost to admit that your spirit has outgrown certain rooms. Still, the sentence is there. It keeps returning. Another sign is the repetition that seems too exact to ignore. You keep seeing the same sequence, the same timing, the same number, the same image, the same phrase appearing in places that do not share any obvious connection. It shows up on a screen, on a receipt, in a date, in a song lyric, in a passing remark. And you feel that subtle stillness inside you that says, I am being addressed. You may have told yourself it is coincidence. You may have told yourself not to read too much into it. But your heart does not keep pausing for coincidence. Your heart keeps pausing for recognition. And here is what those signs actually mean. They are not proof that you are losing your mind. They are not evidence that something is wrong with you. They are confirmations. They are the language of a life being interrupted by mercy. They are the way heaven speaks when it has your attention before it has your vocabulary. You thought the signs were creating confusion, but they are actually creating readiness. You thought they were interruptions, but they are invitations. You thought they were scattered, but they are gathering you. Let that settle for a moment. You do not need to force an answer on top of what is being revealed. You only need to stay honest long enough to notice what keeps appearing. If even one of those moments landed in you, if your shoulders dropped at any point while I was speaking, type the number 777 in the comments. That number is the number of confirmation. It is the smallest agreement, but it is real. Type 777, then come back to me. But there is something beneath these signs, and once you see it, the scattered pieces begin to arrange themselves. Beneath those signs is one single pattern. It is not chaos. It is not bad luck. It is not that life has decided to be unfair in a random way. It is a pattern of holding back your own expression because somewhere along the way you learned that being fully visible came with a cost. That pattern has a name, and it has moved quietly through your life in more than one form. It is the pattern of self-editing before anyone else can reject you. It is the pattern of softening your truth so that other people stay comfortable. It is the pattern of reaching, then retreating, of sensing the door, then assuming you are not ready, of seeing the next step, then immediately asking whether you deserve it. You do not always call it fear, but fear is often the shape it takes when it wants to remain respectable. You have seen this pattern in your relationships, where you give too much before asking what is true for you. You have seen it in your work, where you keep polishing what is already excellent, because part of you believes excellence must be exhausted before it can be accepted. You have seen it in prayer, where you begin with trust and end with negotiation, as though certainty must be earned in installments. The pattern is persistent because it is familiar, and familiar things often feel safer than freedom when freedom asks you to become visible. And this is the part you need to hear clearly. None of this means you are broken. It means you were trained. It means your heart adapted. It means you learned how to survive in rooms that did not know how to receive the fullness of you without asking you to shrink, delay, or explain yourself first. So no, this is not a flaw in your soul. This is a response your soul learned to carry. The silent cost of living inside that pattern is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is subtle enough to be mistaken for maturity. It looks like constant readiness and private exhaustion. It looks like being the one everyone relies on while nobody notices how often you go inward just to recover your own center. It looks like opportunities arriving and your spirit hesitating because some old interior voice still says, "Not yet, not you, not fully." But the cost accumulates. It turns joy into a cautious visitor. It turns calling into analysis. It turns simple yeses into long internal negotiations. It makes you powerful in everyone else's eyes and unreachable in your own. And after a while you begin to wonder whether this weight is simply your personality, when in truth it is only the shape of a pattern that has been asking you to remain smaller than the life already prepared for you. Stay with me, because there is a layer beneath this one. I need to take you into one image and keep you there, because this part is not a lecture and it is not a list. It is a threshold. Picture a courtyard that once belonged to a house with a great tree at its center. The tree stands there through seasons, through storms, through long afternoons when children run beneath it and elders sit in its shade. Its roots are deep. Its trunk is steady, its branches know how to carry light. But at some point, someone tied ropes around its lower limbs. At first the ropes seem harmless. They are practical, they are temporary. They are there to shape the growth, to keep the branch from leaning too far, to make the tree easier to manage. Years pass. The ropes are no longer needed, but they remain. That courtyard is your inner life. That tree is what was meant to grow freely in you. The ropes are the early agreements you made with fear, with expectation, with the voices that taught you to bend before you had even discovered your own height. You were not born with the ropes. They were tied on after the first tender seasons, when you were still learning what safety sounded like. And because the tree kept living, everyone assumed the ropes had done no harm. That is how hidden restraint works. It does not kill growth instantly. It redirects it. It narrows it. It teaches the branch to curve toward permission instead of toward the sun. The tree survives, and because it survives, people call it fine. But fine is not the same as free. Long ago, something was done around you, and then something was done to your own understanding of yourself. Maybe you were corrected too sharply. Maybe you were praised only when you became useful. Maybe your tenderness was met with impatience. Maybe your strong emotions were treated like inconvenience. Maybe the room around you rewarded the part of you that could stay composed and punished the part that wanted to reach, cry, question, or grow beyond what others expected. Over time, the ropes became so ordinary that you stopped noticing them. You began to speak from the branches instead of from the trunk. You began to live from the parts of yourself that could still be seen without alarming anyone. You learned to keep the deeper movement inside the courtyard, where no one would have to answer for it. You became skilled at appearing whole while privately feeling constrained. You became graceful in public and conflicted in secret. And because you were so good at carrying it, very few people understood that what they admired in you was partly a tree learning to live with tension tied around its growth. But even a bound tree remembers rain. Even a bound tree leans toward sunlight. Even a bound tree sends quiet pressure through the wood until the day comes when what was tied cannot remain tied forever. And that is where you are now. Something in you has begun to resist the old restraint, not with rebellion, with life, with quiet insistence, with the refusal to keep shrinking around what was never meant to define you. The courtyard is still there, the tree is still there, but the ropes are becoming visible, and what once felt like identity is now beginning to look like attachment. If the image I just walked you through touched a place in you that feels unmistakably real, if you can feel the tree in you answering before your mind explains it, type the words "I see it" in the comments. Let the recognition seal where it has just landed. Type it, then come back to me. And now notice what changed the moment that image became clear. You stopped blaming the tree for the ropes. That is the beginning of return. What you are being called back into is not another performance of strength. It is not another strategy. It is not another round of proving that you deserve space. The return is simpler and deeper than that. It is the return of what was always alive beneath the restraint. It is the return of your own breath in your own body without apology. It is the return of trust that does not need to beg to be believed. It is the return of a voice that no longer asks permission to exist. You do not need to invent this return. You do not need to manufacture an identity that feels impressive enough to replace the old one. What you need is to receive what was withheld and tend what was kept alive. The work now is not striving. It is recognizing. It is allowing the old ropes to be seen for what they are, and allowing the tree to remember that growth was never the problem. There is a morning seal for this kind of return. When you wake, before the day begins speaking over you, place your hand somewhere steady and say, "I receive what has been waiting for me." Say it slowly, not as a performance, as a permission. Then breathe once, deeply, and notice whether your chest loosens even a little. That looseness matters. It is not small. It is the body agreeing with what the spirit has already begun to know. There is also a quiet audit you can do when the old pattern starts talking again. Ask yourself, am I choosing this or am I reenacting it? Ask it without accusation. Ask it with tenderness. Then name the difference. When you can name the difference, the rope loses some of its authority. When you can name the difference again and again, the trunk remembers its own steadiness. You are not being asked to become someone else. You are being asked to stop negotiating with what in you already knows the way forward. Receive the open hand. Receive the wider room. Receive the truth that your life has been speaking beneath the noise. Keep tending what is growing. Keep watering what has returned. Keep honoring the places where the old restraint still tugs, not as an owner, but as a witness learning to release. And there it is. The movement is not forward at all costs. It is inward toward what was always yours. If the rope has finally slipped in the image of that tree, if you feel that quiet release in the branches and something in you has already answered, type the words "I am ready" in the comments. Let the phrase stand there as a witness. Type it, then come back to me. Because this is where the return becomes visible. You are not being assembled from pieces that failed. You are being restored to what remained when the pieces were covered. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not disqualified by the time it took for you to see the pattern clearly. The seeing itself is part of the healing. The naming itself is part of the opening. The willingness to stay present with what has been true is already a form of release. What an honoring thing it is when a life finally stops arguing with its own longing. And let me say this plainly. If something in this message confirmed what your spirit already knew, let your like be your amen without words. Not as a metric. As an agreement that what was named here was named correctly. Sit with that for a moment. Let it settle into the part of you that has waited longest to hear the truth spoken without force. Someone came to mind while this was unfolding, and you know exactly who I mean. It may be the person who always carries more than they say. It may be the one who looks composed but is quietly tired. It may be the one who has been seeking with such careful faith that no one around them realizes how much they have been holding in silence. It may be the one who smiles politely while standing at the edge of their own becoming. Their face did not arrive by accident. Send this to them as a delivery, not as a recommendation. Send it as care, because what is being named here is not only for you, it is for the one whose strength has hidden their ache, for the one whose posture says fine while their spirit says wait, for the one who has been standing near a door they did not yet know how to open. Before this closes, type the words "I am chosen" in the comments, not as a wish, not as a hope, as a confirmation. Let your fingers do what your spirit is already doing. Let the declaration rest where the old hesitation used to live. You are confirmed. You are uncovered. You are being led back to yourself. You are not abandoned in the middle of this becoming. You are not forgotten in the quiet of these changes. You are being carried into a wider place. Right now, all across the world, there are others hearing this same recognition in their own way, at their own hour, in their own room, with their own hidden ache finally being named. You are part of something that does not need to announce itself loudly to be real. You are part of a movement of return, and that is why the peace feels so deep when it lands. You are not the only one whose inner courtyard is being cleared. You are not the only one whose tree is remembering light. You are not the only one whose ropes are loosening now. It is sealed. You do not need to keep proving what has already been seen. The moment has already turned, and what was hidden in the quiet of your life is now becoming visible in the open. What has been happening to you is not a collapse, it is a release. It is the slow and holy undoing of what was never meant to define you, and that is why it feels both tender and unsettling at the same time. You have been living through an inner rearrangement, and the reason it has felt so intense is because the old shape of your life is no longer large enough for the truth that is rising inside you. So hear this gently. You are not being abandoned by the change. You are being escorted by it. You are not being left behind by what you prayed for. You are being led into the very place where the prayer begins to answer itself. There are moments when a soul can feel the floor shift without anyone else noticing. You are in one of those moments now. The outside still looks familiar, but the inside has crossed a line, and that is why old comforts no longer comfort in the same way. That is why old explanations sound thin. That is why what once kept you calm now feels too small to hold what you know in your bones. And because this shift is so deep, it keeps asking to be named again and again. Not because you are confused, but because your spirit is trying to teach your mind a language it has not yet learned. You may have noticed that the places that once felt final no longer feel final. A conversation that used to settle everything now leaves a quiet ache. A plan that once looked sufficient now feels like a draft. A response you used to accept now lands with a strange distance, as though the truth in you has grown too large to keep bowing to what is merely convenient. This is how awakening often begins, not with fireworks, with dissatisfaction, with a holy refusal to keep living inside language that no longer reaches the depth of what you know. You are not becoming difficult, you are becoming honest. You are not losing peace. You are losing false agreement. You are not spiraling. You are separating what is alive from what has only been repeated. And because this has taken root quietly, it may not look dramatic from the outside. You still move through your day. You still answer what needs answering. You still carry your responsibilities. But inside, something in you keeps leaning toward a truth you cannot yet fully explain. And that leaning is not weakness. It is direction. The mind wants a clean map. The spirit often begins with a tug. The body often recognizes the tug before the mind can translate it. That is why some of your most important moments have arrived as subtle unease, as a pause before speaking, as a stillness that enters the room without permission, and stays long enough to make you look inward. There are signs that have been accumulating around you, and they have not come to frighten you. They have come to confirm you. They have come to tell you that you are not imagining the change. You are feeling it because it is real. If you have been waking with a strange sense that something is already moving before the day begins, that is one sign. If you have been feeling waves of emotion without a clear cause, that is another. If people around you keep speaking in ways that no longer touch the center of you, that is another. If the same phrases, the same numbers, the same little confirmations keep meeting you in ordinary places, that is another. None of these things exist to confuse you. They exist to gather your attention. They are not noise. They are repetition with purpose. They are not interruption. They are invitation. They are not random. They are personal. And the reason they feel so persistent is because something in you has already begun answering them. Your spirit does not rise up for empty things. Your spirit does not keep pausing for coincidences. Your spirit pauses when recognition is near. I want you to see this clearly. The signs are not the problem. The signs are the evidence that something deeper is already underway. What feels unsettling is often only the outer edge of an inner yes that has not yet found its full language. So take a breath with me here. Let your shoulders soften a little. Let what is true simply be true for a moment, without forcing it to become a conclusion too soon. If even one of those confirmations landed in you, if your body recognized itself in what I just named, type the number 777 in the comments. That number speaks of confirmation. It is a small agreement, but it is real. Type 777, then come back to me, because beneath those signs is a pattern, and the pattern is older than the current moment. The pattern is the quiet habit of shrinking before you're asked to shrink. It is the reflex of making yourself smaller in advance, so no one else can do it to you first. It is the learned posture of softening your voice, editing your desire, and delaying your own clarity until the room feels safe enough to permit what you already know. You may have called it patience. You may have called it humility, you may have called it caution, but there are times when those words only cover the deeper truth, and the deeper truth is that you have been carrying an old agreement with limitation. That agreement says, wait until you are certain. That agreement says, wait until you are chosen. That agreement says, wait until someone confirms what you already feel. And because the agreement has been with you for so long, it has colored the way you approach almost everything. You reach, then question. You sense, then minimize. You begin, then hold back. You hear the invitation, then ask whether it was really meant for you. It is not that you lack vision. It is that vision has often had to pass through hesitation before it could become movement. This is why your life has felt like a series of almosts. Almost open, almost settled, almost free, almost ready. The cost of that pattern is quiet, but it is real. It makes you carry more than your share while wondering why your soul still feels underfed. It teaches you how to function without fully inhabiting yourself. It lets you be admired for composure while starving the part of you that longs to be met without conditions. And the most painful part is that you may have mistaken this pattern for wisdom, because it has helped you survive, it has kept you cautious, it has kept you careful, it has kept you from certain disappointments. But survival and calling are not the same thing, and a pattern that protected you for a season can become the very thing that prevents you from entering the room prepared for you. So this is not accusation. It is recognition. You did not choose every layer of this pattern. You inherited some of it, you learned some of it, you adapted to some of it in places where tenderness was not welcomed and where your full voice would have been too expensive for the people around you to handle. You became fluent in restraint because restraint was rewarded. You became skilled at blending in because visibility came with a cost. That is why you are not being judged now. You are being seen. And being seen is its own kind of mercy. Because once the pattern is seen, it begins to lose its authority. Once it is named without shame, it can no longer hide behind its own familiarity. Once you stop treating it like identity, you can finally begin to let it go as strategy. There is a deeper layer still, and I need to take you there carefully. Picture a courtyard that has stood for many years. Quiet and full of weather, with a tree at its center that has watched generations pass beneath its branches. That tree is strong, but not because it was never touched. It is strong because it kept living through seasons it did not choose. But at some point someone tied ropes around its limbs to guide its shape. At first the rope seemed useful, At first they seemed temporary. At first they seemed like care. Years passed, and the ropes stayed. The tree kept growing, but not freely. It reached, but only where it could. It leaned, but only as far as the restraint allowed. It learned to survive inside a form that was never meant to become permanent. That courtyard is your inner life. That tree is the part of you that was always meant to grow without apology. And the ropes are the early lessons that taught you to stay manageable, readable, and safe for other people's comfort. No one starts life wanting to be bound, but after enough small corrections, enough subtle dismissals, enough moments of being praised only when you were easy to handle, you began to accept the ropes as normal. You began to think that, attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.